From Governor's Comedy Club in Levittown, this is Sports Bash presented by TicketBash.com. TicketBash.com, where memories are made affordable and where you'll never pay a service fee. Sports Bash is also presented by Ryan Anthony's Heating and Air Conditioning Service, keeping Long Island warm for over 18 years, serving their customers in Nassau and Suffolk with pride, honesty, and integrity. For more information, visit www.liboilers.com. Sports Bash is brought to you by the Embassy Diner, located at 4280 Hempstead Turnpike in Bethpage. Every customer is considered family at the Embassy Diner. Mention Sports Bash, get that free, delicious dessert with your meal. And by the Marty Lyons Foundation, the official charity of Sports Bash Media. For more information, go to martylyonsfoundation.org. Well, hi again, everyone, and welcome to Sports Bash. I'm Peter Schwartz, a special Wednesday edition of the program. We were not on yesterday. I had some personal business to attend to, so we are doing a show today, and we're going to be on again tomorrow at 1 o'clock as normal. 516-465-3990 is the number to call on the show. Make sure you're subscribing to Govs Comedy Club podcast channel on YouTube and following Sports Bash Media on X, Instagram, and Facebook. Good show today. Coming up on the program, we'll be joined by Newsday Knicks beat writer Steve Popper. Lots going on in Knicks land, of course. A disappointing end to the Eastern Conference Finals, losing to the Pacers in 6 games. And then we find out yesterday, and it's a surprise to a lot of people, maybe not so much of a surprise to some people, that the Knicks decided to move on from head coach Tom Thibodeau as they let him go after 5 seasons on the job. I'll hold my thoughts on Tibbs until later on when Steve joins me on the program. We'll also have the Ticket Bash weekly sports calendar, the Sports Bash Media poll question of the day, and later in the show we'll tell you about tomorrow's show, and also, excuse me one second, and we'll also tell you about a couple of really big guests we have lined up for next week. So some good stuff coming up. And again, we'll get into the Tom Thibodeau firing and all the Knicks stuff with Steve Popper from Newsday a little bit later on in the show. Obviously would like to start with some stuff about me that has been in the news the last couple of days. I'm sure most of you people who are watching or listening know by now that on Monday, I resigned as general manager of the New York Dragons, along with Director of Operations Sean Wachter and Director of Business Development Marilyn Rich. The 3 of us in our front office all collectively decided to resign from our respective positions. I am not going to get into any more of the details of if you haven't seen it. There's a story in Newsday about it. There is a story in the New York Post about it. And I did go on with Boomer and Gio on WFAN yesterday to address it. And I know Tony talked about it on his show, Knock 'em Dead Comedy Hour, comedy show, weekdays from 11 to 12:30. Always have to get that plug in for you, my friend. So I know Tommy discussed it yesterday. So I'm not going to get into the minutia of it. But here's why: as we look at a picture of me and Marilyn and Sean that was taken a couple of months ago, and I really wanted to kind of focus on them to start out. You know, I've said ad nauseum that my first time around with the Dragons from 2001 to 2008, when I was with the Dragons as their radio announcer, and did some games on TV, and I did a couple other things for them and also for the Arena Football League. But those 8 years working for the New York Dragons and working for the Arena Football League. And it's still, to this day, the best job I've ever had, with no disrespect to this place or FAN or any other place I work. I've been very, very lucky in this business to have so many incredible opportunities. But that job, far and away, the best job I've ever had. And people say, why? Well, it's because I love arena football. And calling arena football games was just flat out awesome. And I like to travel. And I got to travel. I got to go to places with the Arena Football League. And even the year before I started with the AFL, and I worked in the XFL, the original XFL, You got to travel the place. Like I'm not going to these places all the time. It was a really cool opportunity for me to do that. And of course, obviously during my time with the Dragons, I met my wife, Cheryl, and we had our first child, Bradley, together. And all that happened for me during that 8-year run. And those are very important, obviously, aspects for me. But as far as the job itself, those 8 years, the most important takeaway from the job, aside from calling the games and exciting moments and playoff games, the thing that I always carry with me about those 8 years were the relationships that I created. And to this day, it'll be lifelong friendships with coaches, with players, with people in the front office with the Dragons, people that worked for the Arena Football League. I carry to this day some friendships that you can't put a price tag on having a good friend. You just can't. There's a saying, my wife likes to use it a lot, and I've stolen it from her. But you pick your friends, you don't pick your family. And it's very, very hard. You love family to death, but you have to pick the right friends. You don't want to have horrible friends. And I was very, very lucky through those 8 years to develop a lot of great, close friendships that I still have. It's pretty cool to be able to pick up the phone at somebody who I haven't spoken to in 15, 17 years since the Dragons ended, the first Dragons. They'll always be the Dragons in my heart. That's a story for another day. And I actually feel the same way now as, we announced our resignation on Monday. And if there's one thing that I will take away from the last 4+ months is that I now have 2 more friends for life than I did before February of this year. This picture that we're looking at now of me, Marilyn, and Sean was taken at the Embassy Diner, our great sponsor. This was back in February. Just to give a little timeline, I came on in late January. I hired Sean as director of operations, and shortly after that, we brought on Marilyn as our director of business development. And this was right as Marilyn was coming on board. And I have to tell you that I think for 3 people who never knew anything of each other, to work as well together as we did so quickly, kind of mind-boggling to me. Because when you start to work with new people, like if you start a new job and all of a sudden you're presented with people who you've never worked with before or been with before, and friends with before, it takes time to build chemistry. And anything, look, you put an expansion team together in any sport, and you have an expansion draft, and you're plucking from this place, that team, and this team, and you put a team of 20 players together for a hockey team. It takes time to build that chemistry together. And for us, the opportunity to get a pro sports team off the ground on Long Island, our home, was pretty special. And we all, we're all from Long Island. All of us have worked in sports before. Obviously, I had 8 years with the Dragons. Sean was in training camp with the Dragons, was a Dragons season ticket holder. Marilyn had a background on the sports business side, in sales and other things. So we shared that same passion to get this thing off the ground. And again, if there was one thing that comes out of it, is that we created, friendships for life. I hope there's an opportunity that the 3 of us get to work together again. That's how enjoyable it was to work with both of them. And I got to tell you, we probably spent more time on the phone because we didn't have an office. But more time on the phone during the course of the day than we, three of us collectively, spent talking to our families during the course of a day. That's how into it we were. That's how passionate we were about this. And we just, again, we worked so well together, went to networking events, went on business meetings, just good times. And I look back on those 4 months, and I probably would have gone stir crazy if I didn't have either one of them with me. Because it takes a village. To work for a pro sports team, to have a successful team, it takes a village. It's not all about one person, or even about 2 or 3 people. It takes a village to run an operation like that. And the 3 of us, for what we were tasked with doing on a daily basis, I wouldn't have wanted to go to war with 2 other people. Like that's how cool it was. And I'm going to miss that every day. I'm going to miss those morning conference calls. Not going to get into what we discussed on those conference calls, but they were wonderful conversations. And the other thing too is, and I thought about this on Monday as this was all unfolding. And by the way, let me also just say this. Since news broke about this on Monday night, I know all 3 of us have to a certain extent, but obviously with my Rolodex, as I like to say, and following on social media, I have been overwhelmed with the response from people over and over and over again. I am overwhelmed with the amount of people that reached out to the point where, like, I still am getting back to people. And I know Marilyn and Sean are going through the same thing. But to everybody who reached out to me over the last 48 hours or so, I thank you. And if I haven't gotten back to you yet, I will. Just give me a little bit more time to get that done. But yeah, it's been extremely overwhelming. But the one thing I thought about on Monday, and I've talked on the show, and Tony and I have talked a little bit about late night television and how we're both big fans. And I obviously grew up with Johnny Carson, and then obviously I love David Letterman, and I also like Conan O'Brien. I mean, I always liked his late night show, and it was tough shoes for him to fill David Letterman's shoes, but I think he grew into that job very, very well. I actually miss him on late night. And you're starting to see him do a couple of things now, and he's had a very successful podcast for a while. And you wonder if he's got the itch at any point to, if he's got the itch to get back into late night television. But I thought about this the other day. Tony's going to laugh when I bring this up. If you remember Conan's last Tonight Show, and if you remember going back to, that whole Michigas with him and Jay Leno and everything like that, and they wanted to me or at the 12 o'clock, whatever it was, they wanted to put Jay back on for a half. That whole stupid thing that went on in Conan O'Brien's monologue for his last Tonight Show. And I go back and I watch this sometimes because I'm a creature of late night also, and I like to go back and watch old clips and things like that. And I watch this from time to time because it was very inspiring at the time, and having watched it live when it happened, or not live, but like the first time it aired. Conan he joked about the thing with Jay Leno and everything like that. It was hysterical. But he also said it was his dream to host the Tonight Show. And he got to do it for 7 months, and he didn't want anybody to feel sorry for him. And I kind of felt the same way on Monday. Like, I go back to my favorite job I've ever had in my world was being the radio announcer for the Dragons. It was the best job I've ever had in the world. And I always felt, as I was going through those 8 years with them, like, I wonder what it would be like to have a decision in that. Like, I would run the team this way, or I would run the team that way. You know what? I wouldn't have the dancers come out that time out. I would have them come out this time out. You know what? I wouldn't put that up on the video board at that time. I'd rather let's try this. And no one ever listened to the radio announcer. Like, I was just a radio guy. Like, that's it. You just do the games, write your stories for our website, do the little video clips for the website. You know, let us handle the game operations and stuff. But you always wondered, like, how would you do that? Like, how could you get more attention put on the team? And to kind of steal Conan's line, for 4 months I got to do that. For 4 months I got to be the general manager of a professional football team. And I had a great team with me every day. A great team. Two of the most wonderful people that you could ever work with on a daily basis. And for that, I'm first and ultimately proud to call them both friends. And I know this is not the end. I know it's just the beginning. I really hope at some point there's an opportunity for the three of us to work together on a project again. But I will say it was a wonderful 4 months working with them, even though sometimes we would, I probably shouldn't say this. And if I probably shouldn't say it, I shouldn't say it, but I'm going to say it anyway. We had some very, very passionate discussions about things. Is that a good way that's probably a good way to phrase it, right?
Absolutely.
Some very, very passionate, very, very open conversations about what we did with the Dragons. And it's a shame it had to end, but there is that saying, all good things do eventually come to an end. And for us, as the Dragons front office, it came to an end at around 5:51, I think it was, on Monday when we hit send on that email. And that's what happened. So we move on. We start to talk about some other things going on in the world of sports. When we come back on the show, we're going to turn our attention to the Knicks. Steve Popper from Newsday is going to join me. That is all coming up when we come back right after this. Hi, I'm Peter Schwartz.
And I'm Vinny Tickets.
We want to take a moment to talk about our fantastic sponsor, the Embassy Diner.
Embassy Diner has been a beloved staple in the restaurant industry for over 50 years. And the great thing about it is when you walk through the door, you're not a customer, you are family. Every visit promises to be filled with warmth, love, and respect.
And here's an extra treat. If you mention Sports Bash during your visit, you enjoy a free dessert on the Embassy Diner.
Come on down to the Embassy Diner, where great food and great company are always on the menu.
Visit the Embassy Diner, located at 4280 Hempstead Turnpike in Bethpage.
In 1982, the Marty Lyons Foundation began with a single heartfelt mission: to bring moments of joy and hope to critically ill children by granting wishes that make their dreams come true. Since that day, we have touched the lives of over 8,500 families, raising over $43 million to grant wishes that offer a beacon of light in their darkest times. These precious wishes cost an average of $6,700 each, and your support is crucial to our mission. Every donation, big or small, makes a difference. And with 76 cents of every dollar going directly to supporting our families, you can rest assured your support truly changes lives. The Marty Lyons Foundation operates 11 chapters in 14 states now, working tirelessly to reach as many children as we can. This dedication goes hand in hand with our commitment to transparency and accountability, earning us top ratings on Charity Navigator, Great Nonprofits, and Candid, which underscores our dedication to those we serve. The Marty Lyons Foundation grants wishes to children ages 3 to 17. And what really makes this foundation so special is our willingness to grant not only a first wish, but also consider a second wish to a child who continues to battle a life-threatening illness. We stand by these children, offering them hope and strength through the power of dreams, giving our children the courage to wish for more.
What's your purpose in life? Is your purpose in life to live in the big house and drive the nice car? No. Your purpose in this life is to make it a little bit better for those that follow and realize that we live for today to see a better.
Visit MartyWyonsFoundation.org to learn more and get involved.
Welcome back to Sports Bash, presented by TicketBash.com. I'm Peter Schwartz. 516-465-3990 is the number to call. We'll get back to the phone lines a little bit later on in the show, but obviously lots going on in the land of the New York Knickerbockers after their Eastern Conference Finals loss to the Indiana Pacers. And then yesterday we found out that the Knicks have fired head coach Tom Thibodeau. And on the line with us to talk about it on the Zoom line, and I haven't seen or spoken to this guy in a long time. I used to see him all the time when I covered various sporting events, especially basketball, for various places that I worked at. So it's great that we're able to reconnect here on the show, and I'm glad to have him on the program. Welcome to Sports Bash from Newsday. He covers the Knicks, Steve Popper. Steve, it's Peter. How are you?
Good. Glad we could do this, and it does feel like old times since the Knicks are dysfunctional again. That hasn't been we haven't had that in a while, so we're back to normal here, and everything is just as it was last time I saw you.
Yeah, so it's amazing. Like, you know what? Sometimes you just can't have nice things, and the Knicks turned themselves in the last few years into this thing that most Knicks fans have never seen in a long time. First time in the conference finals. In 25 years. Let me start with this. We'll get to the actual team and the series with Indiana, but first, I think a lot of people were stunned at the news yesterday that Tom Thibodeau was relieved of his duties as head coach. I think a lot of people thought that after beating the Celtics in round 2 that his job was going to be safe for at least a year, and things obviously didn't go the way they wanted to against Indiana. But what was your reaction to hearing that Tibbs got fired yesterday?
Very mixed, because look, I'd heard and we've all kind of hinted at it and reported on it that he was in trouble a couple times, and in this postseason, I had multiple people telling me that he thought he had to beat Boston in the second round to save his job. He does go ahead and beat Boston, so I thought that kind of gave him safety. I talked to somebody during the Indiana series, and they were not. We're not so sure that he was safe. People close to him were not so sure. So it's not stunning, but it is stunning because look, 25 years and not just reaching the conference finals. I've covered this team a long time, and there was a lot of dysfunction. There's a lot of times players didn't want to come be a part of this, and he turned the culture around here. Mm-hmm. It became stable. It became professional. It became a place where an all-NBA player could flourish. So I think, it's surprising in that aspect that when you have a good thing, you better be really sure what's on the other side, because you could have just broken up. I don't think this is a super roster. I think they're good. I think they could be a contender next year. But one of the benefits that they had of Thibodeau is they played every game. They won 51 games because Thibodeau doesn't let a game go in November, in February. He plays to win every single night, and that's a culture he creates. And that's what the team carries through preseason all the way to the postseason.
Yeah, there's certainly a lot of questions about what the future holds, and that is the thing that you pointed out, that he was very passionate about this job. He wanted this job so badly 5 years ago, and he took this team from the doldrums to where they are now, and that was one of the final 4 teams left in the NBA, and it sparks obviously a couple of questions. Here's the first one. Where did this come from? Did this come from Leon Rose, or did it come from Jim Dolan? And you hope it came from Leon Rose, because you want your basketball czar to be the one who makes the decision. If it came from Jim Dolan, then it brings us back to the dysfunction we talked about at the beginning of the interview. Where do you think this ultimately came from, this decision?
Well, look, some of it is sources and some of it is guessing. Mm-hmm. But I don't think it was Leon, and I'm not sure it was Jim Dolan. There was a lot of people in the organization. You know what the Garden is like. Yeah. There's a lot of finger pointers and blame, people looking to blame and protect their own turf. And I've heard it for years that there were voices in Dolan's ear telling him Thibodeau was not the right guy. not just to get him over this level, but all along that he wasn't the right voice for this team. There were analytical guys, there were leadership guys who I've heard kind of had it in for Tom for years, and I don't think that's any different now. I do know from sources I've had that Leon protected him from those those knives before. So maybe it just got to a point where he couldn't this time. But I don't ever believe that Leon initiated this, and I don't think Dolan initiated it. I think the voices finally got loud enough, and the drum beat got loud enough that Dolan was part of it, and they made the move. And I think when it got to a certain point, Leon felt that was a fight he couldn't win anymore.
The other question also now coming out of this is what does Jalen Brunson think about this? Because Jalen had a great relationship with Tibbs. Obviously, his father's on the coaching staff, and he was even questioned. And I you would obviously know. I don't remember who asked the question in the post game after Game 6, but somebody asked Jalen Brunson about the status of Tibbs, and he was like kind of stunned that somebody would ask him. We're here in the Eastern Conference Finals, and why would you ask me about that? So I'm wondering now, I'm sure a lot of people are wondering around the Knicks, is what does Jalen Brunson think about this?
Well, I'll say this. I asked that question.
Oh. and I'm sorry, Steve, I'm sorry. I didn't know it was you. I apologize.
Part of it was, look, and it was played a little differently than people thought. It wasn't Jalen storming off. It was the last question. It had been announced as the last question. And part of it is, how the Knicks operate. Mm-hmm. There were not going to be any exit interviews. There wasn't going to be a Leon Rose press conference, on the state of the team. This was when we get them. So knowing that Thibodeau was under fire, I felt like I had to get Jalen to answer on the record. And Jalen is a good kid and has a great relationship with Tom. And I actually went out and talked to him in the hallway after this to make sure he knew what I was asking. And I think I asked it the right way, but yeah. What I wanted to make sure he knew was I wanted him on the record defending Thibodeau and saying to the world and the media what Thibodeau had done for this organization. Because we knew that this, there were voices that were going after him, and there was media outlets that were going after him. So I felt like, I wanted Jalen on the record for this, and it was the only chance we were going to get to do it. Jalen has known him since he was a baby, same as he's known Leon Rose that way. They've kind of been in this together for years and years and years. And, Rick Brunson, I think Tom, and he's been a great ally to Tom. I'm in every stop, and I can tell you from what I see here, there's nobody more loyal to Tom than Rick. Mm-hmm. So to me, I don't think he was one of the voices lobbying against Tom. I think there may be some people in the organization, some players who are not happy, but I don't think it was ever Jalen.
We're talking to Steve Popper, Knicks beat writer for Newsday, here on Sports Bash, a day after the Knicks fired head coach Tom Thibodeau, and just a few days after their exodus from the NBA playoffs after they lost to the Pacers in 6 games in the Eastern Conference Finals. And Steve, you know this as well as I do. We've both been around sports for a very long time. It's not very often where a team has the season as successful as the Knicks, getting to a conference, final, and then making a drastic change like this. Getting rid of the head coach. But obviously the roster changed a little bit after last year. Karl Anthony Towns was brought in. Knicks lost some key pieces from last year's team that advanced to round 2. So in a matter of a couple of years, the Knicks, who became this really strong contender in the Eastern Conference, has made some drastic changes to the roster, and now ultimately their head coach. It's not something you see all the time with a team having this kind of success.
Well, it's funny you say that, maybe a month or two ago about the Rangers, and I don't know anything about hockey. But during that last year, they were pretty good, and I'm like, what happened? That guy was very successful, and how does that change in a year? And that just shows you what it's like there at the Garden.
Right.
Look, I'll things about this. The roster came together this year. Then Karl Anthony Towns couldn't practice with them at the start of training camp until everything was official. So he even missed part of training camp. Mitchell Robinson missed the first 58 games of the year. To me, this group really never had a chance to come together fully, and I was fully of the belief that you give them a second year together, they're going to be a better team next year. And the East is wide open next year. Jason Tatum will miss either all of the year or most of the year, and the Celtics are going to have to make roster decisions based on that. They're in the second apron, and it's not a place you want to be. So I think this team is set up to be a contender. That was under Tom Thibodeau. I don't know who's taken this job, but some of the names I've heard, if you give a championship contending team with veteran players to a guy who's never done this job before, good luck to him. It's a lot to ask, and it's a lot to ask of the team to adjust on the fly here. And you almost basically wonder if you take a step back for a year with this. To me, this is a very risky decision. I understand why teams feel sometimes you need a new voice. I just think this particular time right now, is really risky.
You bring up the coaching possibilities, a perfect segue to where I was going next, and that is who takes this job, who is the heir apparent to Tom Thibodeau. And obviously you've heard some names, and names have been bandied about over the last 24 to 48 hours. But obviously Michael Malone, former coach of the Denver Nuggets, his name has been brought up. Mike Budenholzer's name, former Bucks head coach, he won a championship. Both of those guys won championships with their teams before being let go. Jay Wright, the former Villanova head coach, his name has been brought up. I've seen Danny Hurley's name mentioned. And the intriguing name here, and I think a lot of people have brought this up over the last day or so, is Johnny Bryant, who's the associate head coach of the Cavaliers. You've seen the list of names. You've heard the names being mentioned. Who do you think are the top 2 or 3 candidates to replace Tibbs?
Well, I mean, I know there are voices in the front office that are fans of Johnny Bryant. To me, I know Johnny a little bit, very little, from his time in New York. I've never seen him be a head coach for a game, and neither has anyone else at any level. And to me, that is the riskiest move of all time, that you're handing the reins to someone like that. I've heard things about him that aren't great. I've heard other, players are on his side, though, that he's a very good players coach. I don't know how he is as a game coach. Could you see a situation where he gets it and you put a veteran, a longtime veteran coach beside him? Maybe. I think that's the case with any of these guys who have never been a head coach at the NBA level before. Danny Hurley's intriguing, but and same thing with Mike Malone. If you didn't like Tom Thibodeau being strong-willed, well, welcome to the world of Danny Hurley and Mike Malone, because they're the same way, except they don't have the politeness that Tom has, in dealing with the front office. I think Mike Malone would be a great hire, but will the Garden take an outspoken guy?
It's an interesting question. It's an interesting question. As we talk to Steve,
I doubt it.
As we talk to Steve,
I doubt it. I think Jeff Van Gundy would be great for the job.
Yeah,
I think Jeff Van Gundy would be great for the job.
Yeah,
all the years I've coached, covered coaches. He's as good as any covered coaches. He's as good as anyone I've ever covered.
Do you think there's any chance he could be convinced to do it? I mean, it's been a long time. His exodus, he didn't have a good divorce from the Knicks the first time around. And every time the Knicks have had a coaching opening, people have always brought up Jeff Van Gundy's name. I think the fans would love to have him back. Coaching the Knicks, is it something that would be intriguing to him?
Well, I do know that he was interested in the past and never got an interview. So I'm not sure if the Dolan side of it has forgiven and forgotten him walking off the job. I do know that the reputation he had this year in LA with the Clippers was tremendous. People had a lot of respect for the job he did out there. One scout told me he should be the MVP of the league for what he did with their defense. And I've heard from people that he didn't love, by the end, being the number 2 guy, that he's a guy who was the head coach and you want to run the show yourself. So I think he'd be intrigued. I think he has a loyalty to Tom Thibodeau, and I think that may be a factor here that would probably cause some hesitance. But the example I use is Dolan's money, the Knicks' money, sometimes changes your mind about things you think you don't want to do. Phil Jackson didn't want to be the president of the Knicks, and when the offer kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger, eventually you say yes.
Yep.
If they hone in on somebody as being the guy, when the offer gets too good, suddenly you do things that maybe aren't in your best interest.
The name, Steve, that I think is probably a pipe dream for the Knicks is Jay Wright. Even though he's so revered in this area from, when the time he first, became a legitimate, top coaching figure when he was coaching Hofstra into the NCAA playoffs and went on to all that success he had in Villanova. But he's very, very revered in New York. His name was always brought up. Well, what if he coached the Knicks? He seems to be enjoying broadcasting. He seems to be enjoying not being a coach anymore. I'm just wondering if he's somebody that the Knicks do pick up the phone and call to see if he's interested.
Look, they may call a lot of people. Everything I've heard is, one, he wouldn't do it at this point. He might have 10 years ago, but he's not interested in going to the NBA. And again, I talked to the played from, and they have tremendous respect for the teachings he had for them, the things he taught them as players, as men. They just love the guy. But does that make you an NBA coach? It's a different game. Mm-hmm. It's a different level of dealing with players, when they're 18 versus when they're 25 and they have more money than. It's a different job. And so if you tell me you work a couple Saturdays or Sundays and you make a pretty good living versus dealing with this grind, you better put a lot of money on the table for him, and you better be sure that he's ready to make that move.
Yep, no question about it. I would be remiss if I didn't close with just we've got the NBA Finals matchup of Oklahoma City against Indiana. I've seen a lot of people give their thoughts on this, that this is not going to be much of a series. It'll be a sweep, or at the very, very most, a gentleman's sweep of 5 games. When you look at this matchup, Oklahoma City against Indiana, can you see this being a long series at all? How do you forecast what we're about to see starting on Thursday?
I'm with the pack. I think Oklahoma City is so good. I just think they're a level above everyone. Defensively, they're monsters. Offensively, so many options. They're unselfish. They move the ball. And look, Indiana does a lot of those things too. They're better than people give them credit for. But I just think the level of Oklahoma City is, I'd see it in 4 or 5. And honestly, I would have predicted the same if the Knicks were playing Oklahoma City. I just think they're a level above any of these teams.
Steve, this was awesome getting reconnected here. Thank you so much for spending a few minutes, and great job as always, covering the Knicks again this season for Newsday. And we look forward to reading your stories in the coming days and weeks and see how the Knicks off season starts to unfold.
There is never an off season. It's just always something. So
absolutely.
Back to work.
Steve, thank you so much. I'll talk to you soon.
Anytime, guys. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Steve Popper, Knicks beat writer for Newsday. So we still have some more to do when we come back. We're going to have the ticketbash.com sports calendar, the Sports Bash Media poll question of the day, and we'll tell you about Thursday's show and what's coming up next week. We got some good stuff coming up. We'll tell you about it when we come back right after this.
In 1982, the Marty Lyons Foundation began with a single heartfelt mission: to bring moments of joy and hope to critically ill children by granting wishes that make their dreams come true. Since that day, we have touched the lives of over 8,500 families, raising over $43 million to grant wishes that offer a beacon of light in their darkest times. These precious wishes cost an average of $6,700 each, and your support is crucial to our mission. Every donation, big or small, makes a difference. And with 76 cents of every dollar going directly to supporting our families, you can rest assured your support truly changes lives. The Marty Lyons Foundation operates 11 chapters in 14 states now, working tirelessly to reach as many children as we can. This dedication goes hand in hand with our commitment to transparency and accountability, earning us top ratings on Charity Navigator, Great Nonprofits, and Candid, which underscores our dedication to those we serve. The Marty Lyons Foundation grants wishes to children ages 3 to 17. And what really makes this foundation so special is our willingness to grant not only a first wish, but also consider a second wish to a child who continues to battle a life-threatening illness. We stand by these children, offering them hope and strength through the power of dreams, giving our children the courage to wish for more.
What's your purpose in life? Is your purpose in life to live in the big house and drive the nice car? No. Your purpose in this life is to make it a little bit better for those that follow and realize that we live for today to see a better tomorrow.
Visit MartyLyonsFoundation.org to learn more and get involved.
Hi, I'm Peter Schwartz.
And I'm Vinny Tickets.
We want to take a moment to talk about our fantastic sponsor, the Embassy Diner.
Embassy Diner has been a beloved staple in the restaurant industry for over 50 years. And the great thing about it is when you walk through the door, you're not a customer, you are family. Every visit promises to be filled with warmth, love, and respect.
And here's an extra treat. If you mention Sports Bash during your visit, you enjoy a free dessert on the Embassy Diner.
Come on down to the Embassy Diner, where great food and great company are always on the menu.
Visit the Embassy Diner, located at 4280 Hempstead Turnpike in Bethpage. Hi, I'm Peter Schwartz.
And I'm Vinny Tickets.
We want to take a moment to talk about our fantastic sponsor, the Embassy Diner.
Embassy Diner has been a beloved staple in the restaurant industry for over 50 years. And the great thing about it is when you walk through the door, you're not a customer, you are family. Every visit promises to be filled with warmth, love, and respect.
And welcome back to Sports Bash. I'm Peter Schwartz, 516-465-3990, the number to call. We bring you back with our customary 1:40 in the afternoon Billy Joel song, coming back to the last break. And Root Beer Rag is a song that Tony and I have discussed in the past. I think it was a song that he's been waiting very, very patiently for me to use.
I'm shocked you're using it.
You are shocked.
Shocked.
Well, why are you shocked?
I'm shocked that you're using it because you said you don't really care for this song.
Yeah, but you're a friend, and since you wanted to hear it, I thought I would use it today.
And that's very thoughtful.
You know, I mean, I'm here to make everybody happy as best as I can. Sometimes I don't always succeed with that, but yeah, it's okay. Listen, it's a catchy tune. Again, like if I'm getting in the car and I'm going to put my Billy Joel mix on, it's not always a song that'll be in the mix, but it's okay. Like if it comes on the radio, I'll listen to it.
All right. Good to know.
Right. So and I like to mix things up here on the show. So we came back with a little Root Beer Rag. By the way, good news for Billy Joel fans. And Tony, I don't know if you talked about it on your show today, but Howard Stern went out for, I think it was dinner. I think it was the Stern and his wife and Billy and his wife. And Billy wanted his fans to know that he's going through some issues, but he is not dying.
Right.
So that is actually good news, but it was good to see that he was out and about and having a good night with his wife and with Howard Stern and his wife, too.
Absolutely right. So, yeah, that was nice news, yes.
Yeah, that was good news to hear online today, hearing about what happened on the Howard Stern show this morning. Okay. It is time now. First, this segment of Sports Bash is presented by Ryan Anthony's Heating and Air Conditioning Service, keeping Long Island warm for over 18 years, serving their customers in Nassau and Suffolk with pride, honesty, and integrity. For more information, visit www.liboilers.com. It is time for the weekly sports calendar brought to you by Ticketbash.com. The Yankees are hosting the Guardians today, the 4th, and tomorrow, the 5th. The Yankees will then host the Red Sox this weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, the 6th, 7th, and the 8th. Don't forget, Sunday is a Sunday night game at 7 o'clock for ESPN. You can get tickets for all these events and more at Ticketbash.com. They offer no service fees, and they have the lowest prices around. It is now time for the Sports Bash Media poll question of the day. And what we do is we put that on our X/Twitter page every show, Tuesdays and Thursdays generally, although this week, Wednesday and Thursday. And all you have to do is go online and participate in the poll. Not that we have any prize to give away. Like there's nothing, like we just say, like, you can go on and see who wins the poll. And here it is, based on the news of the last 24 hours. No, it's not about me. Yeah, some people were making jokes on social media yesterday, and it was yesterday. Like, couldn't Peter have his own moment in the spotlight on social media? Or did the Knicks have to go fire Tom Thibodeau yesterday? So it's okay. You'll share the spotlight with Tibbs. Thank you for everything you did for the Knicks the last 5 years. That's okay. So here is the question on the Sports Bash Media poll question of the day. Who should be the new Knicks head coach? And its choices are Brendan Malone, Jay Wright, Danny Hurley, or other. Comment below. And again, I have to say this because it had already happened when I posted the question this morning. I post the question. When I do this, other, comment below. What does that mean? It means you have to comment below. Don't just click other, because then I don't know who you want to vote for. So if it's Mike Budenholzer or it's the Cavs, assistant coach, whatever it is, if that's who you want to pick, you have to comment. Otherwise, I can't register it when I total it up after the end of the day. Brendan Malone, Jay Wright, Danny Hurley, or other. And obviously, I don't pick other because this I run like a dictatorship. I put the names on there that I want. I think it's Brendan Malone. I think that's who they go for. I think he's a name that has always been brought up in Knicks circles, and he's got success. He won a championship. So did Mike Budenholzer. But I think it'll be Brendan Malone. We'll see who the Knicks wind up turning to replace Tom Thibodeau. Coming up on Thursday's show, the Stanley Cup Final begins tonight. The Florida Panthers, Edmonton Oilers, in a rematch of last year's Stanley Cup Final. He was a little busy to join us today to preview it, but we're going to have him on tomorrow to recap Game 1 tonight and set the scene for Game 2 in Edmonton. And we'll be joined by E.J. Raddick, who does a great job covering the NHL, host and all that stuff for NHL Network, a good friend of the program. He's going to join us on the show tomorrow to talk a little hockey. And, we'll also not just talk about the Stanley Cup Final with him, but we will also talk about the Islanders with him as well, and also the Rangers and Devils too. But, selfishly, mainly the Islanders, who now have a new general manager and going in a different direction. And speaking of the Islanders, by the way, if you didn't see the news today, remember Brock Nelson, who the Islanders traded at the deadline to the Colorado Avalanche? Well, today he extended his stay with the Colorado Avalanche, signing a 3-year deal. So any hopes that maybe the Islanders would bring him back as a free agent are gone, unless, of course, they trade for him in the next 3 years. But he is Colorado Avalanche signed for the next 3 years. And again, I think I said this on the show when the Islanders traded him. Thank you to Brock. He is a future Islanders Hall of Famer. Wonderful things for the Islanders over the course of his time here on Long Island, and we wish him nothing but the best in Colorado, except for 2 games a year. And maybe, 4 out of 7 in the Stanley Cup Final, if that should ever happen somewhere down the road. But you know where I'm going with that. So E.J. Raddick is going to join us on the show. And I didn't give... This is why Tony is so great at what he does. Whether he's hosting his own show or he's producing mine, I just realized this because I looked up at the screen and there's a picture of E.J. Raddick. I did not send Tony a picture of E.J. Raddick. And little did I know that maybe when we were in commercial or while I was yapping, he went and found a picture of E.J. Raddick. So thank you very much, Tony. That is why you are the absolute GOAT around here. So we will have E.J. Raddick on tomorrow. We're also going to play Stump the Wiz. And, of course, Wiz has been on a roll the last couple of days, a couple of weeks. I mean, he got that Mike Ditka question in like a second 2 weeks ago. And then last week, now there was no, listen, he could speak. Wiz has a motor mouth. There's no question about it. But there was no way he could get that answer last week. And I just mentioned this is the first Stanley Cup Final rematch since 2008, 2009, Detroit and Pittsburgh. So I give him more credit for his answer so quickly last week because it clearly was going to take him longer to get it out of his mouth. So, Wiz, we'll see if he can get 3 in a row tomorrow. And how about this? I don't know if it was something in the air this week or whatever. We have been inundated with questions. Wiz is a growing phenomenon around here. I thought it was a phenomenon back when we did the old show at LI News Radio, and maybe it's taken a little time to pick up steam here at Governor's Comedy Club Podcast. But I'm telling you, Tony, and everybody watching and listening, I must have about 10 questions to choose from tomorrow. But again, I don't like to say this show is not really a dictatorship, but I have the questions at my disposal. I think I may run it past the committee, which is my family.
Oh, very nice.
I think we may go over some of the questions at dinner tonight and see if we can come up with a good one. But I think we will come up with a good question for Wiz. And how about this? The winner, if we pick your question for tomorrow's show, and you stump the Wiz, I just found out because I had a meeting with the CEO of TicketBash.com, Vinny Tickets. We had a little powwow this morning about a number of different things. 2 tickets to see Kansas at the Bald Hill Amphitheater on Sunday.
Oh, very nice.
That will be the prize. So if you want to try and stump the Wiz, you still have time to get your question in and impress the panel enough, like me and my family, and Tony maybe also, in picking the question for tomorrow's show. And if you stump the Wiz, you will get 2 tickets to see Kansas at the Bald Hill Amphitheater on Sunday. Have you ever seen a show at Bald Hill?
I have. It's a great place.
I went for the first time with my wife and another couple last summer. We saw the Queen cover.
Almost Queen?
Was it Almost Queen? No, I don't think it was. I think it was The Night with Queen.
Okay.
Was the name of the cover band. But
okay.
But we had a phenomenal time. What a great venue to see a show. And so if you stump the Wiz tomorrow, you will get 2 tickets to see Kansas on Sunday at Bald Hill Amphitheater, courtesy of our friends at TicketBash.com. And of course, we'll have, and I seem to always forget this, but we're going to have This Week in Sports History tomorrow as well. Tony always has to point to the script because I always seem to slide by it. And I feel bad because Wiz works so hard on it every single week. But I'm going to put it in tomorrow's script. I'm going to make sure I put it in big, bold lettering. I have to make it bigger now because I have glasses, but still sometimes they don't work. And I have to really look at something. I'll put it in big, bold letters. Stupid idiot. Don't forget This Week in Sports History. Next week, we have 2 big guests coming up next week. They may both be on the same show. We're trying to split it up, but it depends on schedule. But I can tell you for sure, next Thursday, here on the program, we're going to be joined by legendary NFL quarterback Joe Theismann, who is participating in the 36th American Century Championship golf event next week. So we're going to have Joe on the show. We'll talk to him about the golf outing. We'll talk to him about is now the Washington Commanders and his former team when they were known as the Washington Redskins. And of course, you know the news by now. The Commanders are going to be moving back to the RFK Stadium site in Washington, D.C. They're going to demolish RFK Stadium and build a new stadium for the former team formerly known as the Redskins, now the Commanders. We'll talk to him about that and everything else going on NFL. And here's another guest. And we don't know if he's going to be on Tuesday or Thursday yet. We're still working through his schedule, but we will be joined by former Islanders defenseman and current Islanders MSG Network analyst Thomas Hickey next Tuesday or Thursday, because next Friday, June 13th, Thomas will be doing a street hockey clinic at Northwell Health Ice Center in East Meadow, the official practice facility of the Islanders. So that is going to come up next week. And I have to tell the show, and I've gotten to know Thomas a little bit, mainly also after he played for the Islanders, seeing him at UBS Arena and at practice all the time. He made the transition so quickly to being an analyst, and he is really, really good. And I had him on my Double Chili Islanders podcast last year, and I made a note of this to him as if he didn't know it already. But he became so good on the air so quickly, and he's already been, I think he's doing Amazon Prime Canada NHL games already. And it's just, I think it's a matter of time before he gets some really big jobs. And look, I'm not pushing Butch Goring out the door. He's a wonderful analyst, and he bleeds Islander orange and blue. But I could see a scenario somewhere down the road here where if Butch decides to either scale back or to retire, as and remember, it's a grind now. For broadcasters, you're traveling all the time. If he ever decides to retire or take a reduced role, Thomas Hickey would be a great heir apparent. I mean, and again, I'm not pushing. Believe me, as a diehard Islander fan who grew up with the dynasty, Butchie, I am not pushing you out the door. All I'm saying is that when you do take a day off here and there, and you have, because he's had some medical issues the last couple of seasons, Thomas Hickey is going to be a great full-time analyst very, very soon. He already could be, but certainly he will at some point. So we got some really good stuff coming up. We have E.J. Raddick tomorrow, Thomas Hickey, and Joe Theismann coming up next week. And that will do it for a special Wednesday edition of Sports Bash presented by Ticketbash.com and Ryan Anthony's Heating and Air Conditioning Service. Thanks to my guest, Steve Popper from Newsday, for talking Knicks with me. Thanks to Tony Walker and everyone here at Governor's Comedy Club in Levittown. Sports Bash is sponsored by the Embassy Diner in Bethpage and the Marty Lyons Foundation. For our entire crew, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. I'm Peter Schwartz. Sports Bash back tomorrow, our regular time.